All right, today we are diving into one of the most dangerous places you can find on any job site, the confined space. Look, these rules and procedures aren't just about ticking boxes for compliance. They're about making absolutely sure that everyone gets to go home safe. So let's break down the step-by-step guide to doing just that.
Now, you look at something like this, and it seems simple enough, right? It's just an opening. But what invisible dangers are waiting just inside? That is the question you have to answer before anyone even thinks about going in, because some of the most harmless-looking spaces can hide the absolute deadliest hazards.
So first things first, we have to get really precise here, because in the world of workplace safety, knowing the exact definition of a confined space can, and I'm not exaggerating, be the difference between life and death.
So, according to OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, a space is officially confined if it checks three specific boxes. Number one, is it big enough for a person to actually get inside? Two, is it tough to get in or out of? And three, was it designed for someone to hang out in all day? If you answer yes, yes, and no, you're looking at a confined space. We're talking tanks, vaults, silos, pits, that kind of thing.
Okay, now we're leveling up the danger. A regular confined space becomes a permit-required space the second it has one or more serious hazards inside. This could be a toxic atmosphere, something you can't see or smell, or a material like sand or grain that could literally swallow you whole, or even just a weird internal shape that could trap you. The moment any of these are present, everything stops. You need a formal plan.
So, now that we know what we're up against, let's talk about the master plan for staying safe, the entry permit. And please, don't think of this as just more paperwork. This is your blueprint for a safe operation, from start to finish.
And that's really the whole point, isn't it? The permit forces you to answer this one crucial question. It makes the entire team stop, think, and come up with a plan for every single risk before the job even begins.
Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a pilot's pre-flight checklist. The entry permit is a written document that spells out every hazard, every piece of safety gear, every person and their role. And it's not valid until an entry supervisor signs off on it, giving that final green light that all the checks are done and it's safe to go.
So when you boil it down, the permit really does three critical things. First, it makes you identify every single thing that could go wrong. Second, it makes you list out exactly how you're going to control for those risks, what gear, what procedures, and finally, it's the official signed document that authorizes the work to begin.
But here's the thing. A plan is only as good as the team carrying it out. For a permit-required entry, it's really helpful to think of the team like a three-legged stool. If any one of those legs fails, the whole thing comes crashing down. There are three roles here, and they are absolutely critical.
First up, leg number one of our stool, the authorized entrant. This is the person actually going inside the space, and their role is anything but passive. They have to know the dangers, use all the right gear, stay in constant touch with the outside, and, most importantly, they need to be ready to get out the second they sense something is wrong.
Next, the second leg, the attendant. This person is the entrance lifeline. They are stationed outside and they stay there no matter what. They are the eyes and ears constantly monitoring conditions, keeping people away who aren't supposed to be there, and they are the first line of rescue. Their focus cannot be broken for a second.
And finally, the third leg holding it all together, the entry supervisor. This is the person with the ultimate responsibility. They're the one who double-checks everything, confirms rescue services are ready, and gives the final go by signing that permit. They also have the power to cancel the whole job at any moment if things change. The buck stops with them.
Okay, now we get to what is probably the single most important pre-entry check. This is the true go or no-go moment. We're talking about atmospheric testing. Before anyone even thinks about entering, a qualified person has to test the air inside. And here's a fascinating detail. How you test is just as critical as the test itself. You can't just stick a monitor in the opening and call it good, because those deadly invisible gases, they can settle in layers at different depths. And this specific testing order is absolutely non-negotiable. You always test for oxygen first. Now, why is that? Well, it's because most of the sensors that detect flammable gases need a certain amount of oxygen in the air to even work right. So if you get the order wrong, you could get a reading that says it's safe when it's actually an explosive environment. After oxygen, you check for flammables, and then, finally, for any toxic stuff. And this just perfectly shows the tightrope you're walking. The safe zone for oxygen is incredibly small.
If you drop below 19.5%, you're at risk of passing out and dying. But if you go above 23.5%, the air becomes oxygen-enriched, which makes everything hyperflammable. The risk of a fire or explosion goes through the roof. There is just no room for error here.
But, even with the most perfect plan, you have to be ready for things to go sideways. That's why every single entry needs a clear, practiced escape plan. So what do you do when the unexpected actually happens?
These are the hard and fast triggers for an immediate evacuation. These are not suggestions. If your attendant or supervisor tells you to get out, you get out. If you feel dizzy or notice a weird smell, you get out. If an alarm goes off, you get out. There is zero hesitation.
Now, when it comes to an actual rescue, there's a clear hierarchy. The absolute best-case scenario is always self-rescue. The entrant gets themselves out. That's the fastest and safest. The next best thing is a non-entry rescue, where the attendant uses something like a winch to pull the person to safety from the outside. The absolute last resort is an entry rescue, where a whole team has to go in, because now you're putting even more people into that same dangerous environment.
And that brings us right back to the beginning, doesn't it? A well-thought-out plan, a sharp and ready team, and constant, thorough testing. It's all designed to prevent this exact situation. When you follow the procedure, you keep the rescue team from ever being needed in the first place.
So as we wrap this up, I'll leave you with one final question to think about. The plan, the team, the tests, when it comes to confined spaces in your world, is every single box on that safety checklist ticked every single time? Because your life and the lives of everyone on your team absolutely depend on it.